To the casual traveler, the Appalachian Mountains appear as a quiet, unbroken expanse of rolling green ridges. For millions of visitors winding along the Blue Ridge Parkway, they serve as a gentle, scenic backdrop. Those same forests sit directly on top of hollowed-out industrial empires, fully stocked government nuclear bunkers, and isolated communities that history temporarily misplaced. Analyzing the deep geology and the forgotten human geography buried here reveals a different history of the North American continent than the one found in standard textbooks. Geologists date the core rock of the Appalachians to roughly 1.2 billion years old. These tectonic plates collided before trees evolved, bones existed, or Saturn had rings. At their peak, these jagged summits reached 30,000 feet, matching the scale of the modern Himalayas. This cross-section illustrates the mountain root theory. Continental collisions drive an enormous root of thickened crust down into the mantle, like a ship's heavy keel. Over time, wind and ice strip away the surface. Through isostasy, the buried root slowly floats upward to compensate. Today's rolling ridgelines represent the final, decaying stumps of that colossal prehistoric world. That geological wealth eventually drew human extraction. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, massive timber and coal operations began hollowing out the ridges to feed a rapidly expanding nation. Coal companies constructed entire towns from scratch, deep in these isolated valleys. They owned the houses, the schools, and the general stores, paying their workers in privately minted script that could only be spent within the company's closed economic loop. Beneath the surface, men worked in suffocating, unstable shafts, physically breaking apart the billion-year-old rock by hand to extract the coal veins trapped inside. This absolute corporate control eventually fractured. In 1921, roughly 10,000 heavily armed miners clashed with private detectives and federal troops at the Battle of Blair Mountain, exchanging over 1 million rounds of ammunition in the dense woods. The raw materials pulled from these valleys provided the physical fuel for the U.S. Industrial Revolution. The steel and power of the modern American century were dragged directly out of the Appalachian bedrock. The coal shafts are only a fraction of what lies beneath the surface. The region holds vast natural karst cave systems, with deep limestone channels and underground lakes hidden more than 100 feet down in total darkness. That subterranean architecture proved useful. Deep beneath the Greenbrier Luxury Resort in West Virginia, the U.S. government spent decades maintaining a massive, fully stocked nuclear bunker designed to house the entire United States Congress in the event of a strike. This topographical diagram reveals another anomaly, the New River. It slices a straight channel directly through the high ridges, rather than taking the path of least resistance around them. Geologists classify this as an antecedent river. The water was flowing along this route before the tectonic plates collided. As the mountains slowly bulged upward, the river acted like a wire through clay, sawing downward at the same pace the land rose. The deep underground architecture of Appalachia dictates the physical reality of the region, trapping ancient water in fixed paths and providing the stone infrastructure modern governments rely on for survival. The steep, difficult terrain created natural fortresses. Up in the deep hollows, geographic isolation offered a shield for those who needed to disappear. For centuries, a community known as the Melungeons lived entirely separated from surrounding societies. As a tri-racial group, blending European, African, and indigenous lineages, they migrated into high, unmapped ridges to avoid the hardening racial laws of colonial Virginia. And they were not the only ones. A faction of the Cherokee Nation, refusing to surrender their land during the Trail of Tears, retreated deep into these ridges. Their descendants remain there today, on the Qualla boundary. Later, that same isolation protected illicit economies. Moonshiners built elaborate hidden stills deep in the tree line, utilizing twisting logging roads to transport untaxed liquor away from federal reach. The necessity of outrunning agents on these treacherous mountain passes required drivers to heavily modify ordinary cars for maximum speed.
When the drivers began racing each other on Sundays, they laid the foundation for the sport of NASCAR. Out of these overlapping, isolated groups came a distinct sound. By fusing European ballads with African banjos and indigenous rhythms, the mountain communities created the roots of modern country and bluegrass music. Trapped between steep ridges, these populations operated independently for generations. The geography severed them from the rest of the country, incubating entirely unique American subcultures. The scale and density of the Appalachian Highlands create a unique sensory environment. Total silence combined with a canopy that filters light and sound into narrow, low-visibility corridors has fostered a distinct culture of regional folklore. Generations of mountain residents pass down survival rules for navigating the woods.
One prevalent local warning forbids whistling in the woods at night to avoid attracting mimics, unseen entities reported to copy the voices of loved ones to lure lost hikers off the trail. Documented realities explain the foundation of these myths. Epizootic hemorrhagic disease causes local deer to act disoriented and move in unsettling ways, birthing the not deer legend. Swamp gas and extreme sensory deprivation in the wilderness account for phantom lights and auditory hallucinations. These stories serve as a cultural defense mechanism. They are the result of human minds trying to navigate a living, ancient landscape that operates on a timeline and scale far beyond human logic. The Appalachian Range is slowly wearing down. Geologists track the erosion rate at roughly 10 to 30 meters every million years, but its age is exactly what gives it value. During the last ice age, the massive glaciers that bulldozed the northern half of the continent stopped just short of the southern Appalachians. Because the ice never crushed these valleys, the region became an evolutionary arc. Flora and fauna survived here undisturbed for millions of years, resulting in the most biologically diverse temperate ecosystem on the planet. The coal seams are depleting, but the biological value of the mountains remains. The Appalachians are transitioning from a site of heavy industrial extraction into a globally critical biological vault. From deep tectonic roots to secret nuclear bunkers, these ridges preserve millions of years of geology and the human stories that shaped America. Which of these hidden stories surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below and tell us which mountain range we should explore next.